So for those who may not know me or whatever, so my name is Daniel Felstead. I'm the course leader of the MA Fashion Media and Communication at London College of Fashion. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to MA FMC's inaugural summit, HYPERBODIES. So if the course positions itself as at the intersection of emerging technologies, fashion and culture, and is focused on producing projective models in response to a world in flux, then HYPERBODIES asks, in a time of massive technological development, social upheaval and environmental instability, what role do bodies play in this age of extremes? When the primacy of the physical is being superseded by the digital, when our faces, skins and profiles are retouched, optimized and upgraded, what does it even mean to have and be a body today? So through a series of presentations, provocations and group discussions over the course of the next 2 days, the course and invited guests will put our emerging hyperbodies into focus of intellectual inquiry. So we have an incredible lineup of speakers, some here today, as well as a number of guests who will be joining us for the group discussions throughout the 2 days. So to the schedule for today is I'll be giving a very, hopefully very short introduction into the summit. We'll then have a kind of screening, and then we'll move into the presentations. We'll then have a break, and then the second half of this session will be moving into the main space for group discussion among the members here. So just some sort of housekeeping and outlining of the format for the next 2 days. So both days are organized into a kind of morning and afternoon session. As I say, for this session today, or this morning, I'll be giving a short introductory presentation, I guess. On both days, the morning and afternoon sessions will begin with a screening and then a series of short films. Then we'll pass over the mics to the presenters, who will each kind of give around 30-minute presentations each, and set out some provocations and or questions. As I say, then we'll move into the main space where we'll have group discussions among us all. Yeah, and so the group discussions will typically last about an hour or so. It's also important to say that the discussions themselves are designed to be open and non-hierarchical, or non-hierarchical space as much as possible. So please try not to be shy and get involved. And it's important that we all are sort of able to kind of share our takes or insights or ask questions and contribute as much as possible. I know that for some of you, obviously kind of English is your second language, so I appreciate that there's some potential sort of difficulty or shyness with that, but please, as much as possible, the group discussion is for us all to kind of collectively discuss these topics. Also, just as a thing on top of the summit itself, I was only informed of this the other day, but this evening there is an event at the new LCF campus, which is just down the road. So it starts at 7:30. So if you did want to attend that event, I would just say just stick around. And then tomorrow evening we'll be having some drinks to celebrate the summit and the start of the course. So that's tomorrow evening at the end of the summit. So please stick around for that. Also, just finally, the presentations are being recorded, and Alex will also be filming the group discussions or parts of the group discussions. And he may also ask some of you to give kind of short interviews. I hope that is okay. If you don't want to be filmed for whatever reason, just let myself or Alex know, and we'll make sure to either kind of edit you out. in very in kind of Stalinist kind of ways, or we will actively avoid you in the filming, whatever it is appropriate, I guess. So as all good a podcaster host would say, let's get into it.
Traditional binaries keep collapsing.
Do you still feel like an individual?
We're not built for so much change so quickly.
It's all happening faster than we thought.
Does my skin look too real?
You're nothing like your profile pic.
You are triggered.
You deserve it all.
You are over-empowered.
You are alive for the moment.
Extracts from The Extreme Self by Shaman Vizar, Douglas Coupland, and Hans Ulrich Haberist.
So with its connection to identity, self-expression and desire, questions of the body have always been of particular importance to fashion. More so perhaps than any other creative discipline, fashion entangles the body within the dynamics of a messy ecology of social, economic, aesthetic, cultural and political forces. In so doing, fashion serves as a particularly constructive site through which to attend to issues of contemporary forms of production, technology and commerce, and their implications on our changing conditions. Certainly the body and our understanding of it has always mirrored and has been used to represent wider social, economic and political forces, from Hobbes's Leviathan body to the body as factory, machine and network to the more recent viral body. And like the suffix core, today every current meme, event or mood now has its own associated body, streamlined of course to bod, to maximize efficiency and minimal lag. The Kim bod, the Chad bod, the Virgin bod, the Cursed bod, the Slay bod, the Dad bod, the Gamer bod, the Iconic bod, the Stack bod, the MILF bod, the Arca bod, the Ripped bod, the Core bod. And like a core, if a meme, event or mood doesn't have an associated bod, does it even exist? What these different forms of bods indicate is that despite the invitation to understand the body as a single and stable thing, one that houses a discrete and consistent self, the borders between inside and outside, self and other, human and technical, real and virtual, continue to seep into one another to the point of collapse. As Legacy Russell reminds us, quote, we use body to give material form to an idea that has no form, an assemblage that is abstract. She goes on, the concept of a body houses with it social, political and cultural discourses which change based on where the body is situated. So even from a biological perspective, the human body is and never was simply human. It is colonized by and dependent on thousands of different species within it, as well as being reliant on a rich environment of countless species outside it. Take, for instance, the fact that only 10% of our cells and 1% of our genetic material can be classified as human, as Beatrice Colomi and Mark Wigley state, quote, the human is a cross-species collaboration that is ever shifting. The human body is therefore never singular or stable. It is always in transformation, defined by its biosocial diversity, fluidity and plasticity. That is why Elizabeth Groys, there is no body as such. Quote, there are only bodies. As a result, and following the famous statement of Spinoza that no one yet has determined what the body can do, Groys argues, quote, the body needs to be understood more in terms of what it can do, the things it can perform, the linkages it can establish, the transformations and becomings it undergoes, and the machinic connections it forms with other bodies, what it can link with, how it can proliferate its capacities. For writer Daisy Hildyard, to live in this climate crisis era is to possess at least two bodies. The first, your physical body, in which you exist, eat, sleep, and go about your day-to-day life. The second body, what Elvia Wilkes calls the ecosystem body, is one that has an impact on foreign countries, on the movement of birds, supply chains, and sea levels. If we are familiar with the first, the second body is still a mystery, as it implicates us in and is influenced by planetary scale systems far beyond our individual selves, what Tim Morton calls hyperobjects, and Mackenzie Walk refers to as metabolic rifts. So if the gap between the physical and the ecosystem body is too large for us to individually grasp, perhaps today we can add a third mimetic body, a body made up of our multiple profiles, selfies, avatars, posts, comments, tweets, DMs, purchases, searches, etc. A body that is fashioned within and circulates through the digital protocols, networks and platforms that make up the accidental megastructure that Benjamin Bratton calls the stack. Here, the mimetic bod is formed by the monitoring, categorizing, indexing, and circulating of our every click, swipe, and scroll. Our mimetic bods are constantly expanding and shifting as more data is extracted and used to fine-tune the algos, perhaps another kind of emergent bod, for whom we build an ever closer relationship with and dependency on. In this dynamic, interdependent relationship between our mimetic bods and our algo bods, our future wants, needs and desires are predicted and served up in our feeds as we doom scroll our way through the endless stream of engineered content, placed there to induce fleeting states of shock, envy and horniness. The thirst trap keeps us clicking, swiping and scrolling, and so the loop continues spiraling exponentially. However, despite the toxicity of our dopamine-fueled relationships with algo bods, in Glitch Feminism, Russell shows that especially for Black, queer and non-binary people, digital spaces have also been sites in which to refuse the social, political and cultural determinations imposed on us and our bodies. Digital spaces as a means of glitching existing norms and prototyping new identities, new bodies and new modes of existence. As she writes, the digital is giving us the capacity to perform different selves, quite literally putting them on, then taking them off, as we grow with and away from them. In this light, we might think of bodies not as special kinds of things, but as Lisa Blackman argues, quote, sites of potentiality, processes and practices, or following Walk as vectors of information circulating through an ecology of protocols, technologies and platforms. So here the work of philosopher Paul B. Brethiardo is of note. What is particularly interesting in Brethiardo is the way in which they remove the very notion of a natural body, irrespective of its gender or sex. Most notably in Testo Junkie, Brethiardo philosophically charts their own experience of taking testosterone supplements as they experiment in, quote, do-it-yourself bioterrorism of gender. So rather than neoliberalism, Brethiardo argues that our current regime under which we now live is better described as a form of, quote, pharmo-porno capitalism. This is because we are now principally biopicto bodies that are produced by a massive cocktail of hormones and images. As such, Brethiardo points to the already existing microscopic forms of control on our bodies through these regimes of hormones and images. For Brethiardo, it is the inclusion of the biological into the matrix of images and code which best defines the sites of economies of the 21st century, as well as the means of production and circulation of our bodies today. Accordingly, for Brethiardo, it is within this matrix of biology, images and code that forms of political and creative practice are most effective. So finally, to address the title of this summit, what does it mean to talk of hyperbodies? In its most general sense, hyperbodies acts as a placeholder for the site or sites that are emerging as a result of these multiple coincidental physical ecosystem and mimetic bods as they intersect, conflict and influence each other. Hyperbodies refers to the collapsing of fixed forms, context, biologies, media, identities, locations and temporalities. It is the realization that our bodies are transmedia and multidimensional in form, content and practice. Welcome to Hyperbodies.